Clock the Tea with Dr. Long, where wellness meets realness and the tea is always steeped in truth. I'm Dr. Mark Long, a Madison-based professor, business owner, mentor, and community advocate. I created this podcast to spill more than just gossip, although that is my love. It's a bold, brainy, and beautifully queer space where I unpack wellness journeys, pop culture moments, historical reckonings, political shifts, and the issues shaping our communities. I bring lived experience, academic rigor, and a whole lot of sass. I'm introverted but opinionated, liberal and liberated, married, animal loving, and a proud Wisconsinite by way of Illinois. After shedding pounds in 8 years, I'm embracing wellness not as a destination, but as a radical act of self-love and survival. Now tune in because each episode is a chance to learn, laugh, and reflect and challenge the status quo. Whether I'm decoding political drama, honoring queer and black history, or spotlighting local changemakers, Clock the Tea is here to stir the pot with purpose. Now, come for the tea and stay for the truth. You are listening to Clock the Tea with Dr. Long. Welcome back to Clock the Tea with Dr. Long. This is your host, Mark Long. All right, so the topic I want to discuss today is dog walking etiquette. And I know I really haven't talked too much about the dogs that we have, but I want to go ahead and do that while also giving the places where we got them from a shout out because we love our boys so much. We have a red husky. His name is Ed. He is about, I say maybe about 5 or 6 years old. And then we have a Sheltie mixed with a Pomeranian, and he is about going on to be 3 years old soon. So Ed's been with us for about 4 years, and Leo's been with us for about, I would say maybe 2.5 years, and we're loving the energy that he brings to our household along with Ed, and they both are best friends. So anyway, I want to talk about dog walking etiquette because I feel like if you know your dogs, you are very conscious about their behavior and like it's okay if someone wants to pet your dogs. I'm not saying that, but recently, I have 2 dogs have a lot of energy. Shelties are known for their feistiness and Pomeranians are known for their kind of like cuddliness as well. And then I have a husky that's known to be very energetic, when they see people or other pets, they want to just play. And with that, I know if someone comes up and it catches them off guard and me off guard, they're going to want to jump all over the person and like go crazy. The issue is now, when I was heavier, I was a little bit more able to handle them when that happens. And now, being conscious of my size and their size, I'm a little bit more resistant to people coming up to pet them, especially if I'm at a crosswalk or anything. So I'm not trying to say you can't pet my dogs. They're really friendly, but I just fall. Like, I've fallen before when it's happened. I've fallen another time when it's happened. And I just, that's why I'm going for walks, so I can get more strength in my legs, and I'm doing other activities and that kind of thing. But I've lost some weight, so it's a little bit harder to handle 2 dogs at once. So anyway, someone was crossing the street, walking fast towards us, and mind you, we were at a crosswalk, so we were crossing in the other direction, going from where we were across the street, and they were coming from my left, coming towards us from the other side of the crosswalk. So we're waiting for traffic to cross by. It's a busy intersection, and as soon as it clears up, the guy just starts to pet the animals. And I guess it's fine, but we're at a crosswalk, so I don't want cars to start coming and we miss our chance. So I'm like, nope. Like, not necessarily for him to back off, but just so because Leo started to go a little crazy, started to jump all over the guy, and now here I am wobbling, and I'm in an intersection, my balance is losing. I had no choice but to be like, nope. And the guy, I guess, next to me you could tell he was kind of caught off guard. He goes, oh, sorry. And I was like, well, I'm not trying to upset you. One, we're at a freaking intersection and, I'm losing my balance and these are the kind of dogs I have. So I have to be conscious about everything. But anyway, what is like the etiquette? Because I feel like if you're aware of your dog's behavior, I think it's okay to set a boundary. But if it's something that you feel like You shouldn't have to set that boundary. If you have friendly dogs, you're on the walk, you should expect people to walk up to them. I want to hear the honest opinion of that, because that will kind of make me change my perception, and maybe I need to, maybe I need to gain more strength, or like try to find a way to just, handle them better when they get excited. So that could be completely on me, but I also am fine with the amount of strength I have and like the size I am. So I don't think that's like the issue that I should take on myself. And I feel a little guilty thinking that way, but I don't know. I just feel like sometimes dog walking etiquette, I feel like I don't see it in myself to go up to someone else's dog, just because like I just have that boundary in them. Is it a boundary issue? Are people just really into dogs that much? And I'm curious, because I don't do that. And when I went for walks with dogs or without dogs, this is something I don't do. So I'm curious as to hear other opinions about if that's something that they've done before. But I'll leave an opportunity at the end for you all to submit like your opinions on this topic or whatever. But so yeah, that's my first fetch about it. And I love my fluffy boys, and as part of me, I do get a little protective, because I've had incidences where people have come up to them and said things about them being too excited, or they seem so like nice and friendly, but then they come here and all they want to do is run around, and that makes them look untrained. And some lady went off on me about that at the dog park, and I've never gone to that dog park since. And because how are my dogs friendly, but you're coming up and you're being so rude about them playing around in tall grass and potentially pooping and wanting me to go and find it in the middle of tall grass. Like, anyway, sorry, that's a different fetch. Kind of get off on a little tangent. There goes my neurodivergent. I think it's super important when going for walks with your dogs to be conscious about, the kind of dogs you have, but also like who is going to take more of the lead on the walk. One dog typically likes to trail behind the other, and sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes dogs like to walk side by side. I guess it depends on how you train your dogs. We have two rescue dogs, and both have had their own experiences, and Ed, who likes to have more free range, handles himself a little better in those environments, but we noticed that because he is a husky, he gets excited. So we're trying to train him over the years to be okay with walking better. So Leo leading the way in that sense kind of helps Ed with walks, and he's been doing a lot better. So like I feel like it's important to have that companionship with your dogs and knowing their personalities and what's needed and that kind of thing. I would also say dog walking etiquette, I think it's super important to pick up your dog crap, Obviously, there's times where I'm walking and I'm seeing a ton everywhere in the neighborhood. I'm like, whoa, if I pick up my dog crap, how come? But, that's a different thing. I just feel like other people should pick up their dog crap. Like, I shouldn't be seeing them everywhere. What's tea? If it's required for me, it should be required for you. I don't need anybody, like, giving me the side eye if I don't pick mine up, I'm not saying that people don't get away with it. Like, there's times, let's clock it, that I've gotten away with it. But most of the time, I pick up dog poop. I would say that. But I don't like walking past this certain street, I guess, by us, because there's dog poop everywhere, and I just start gagging. So I'm like, what? I just can't do the smell, especially if it's, like, rain frequently or whatever. So I would say pick up your dog crap, That's why they have those little to-go bags. I think that's super important. That's important, making sure that you are being consistent. I wasn't consistent with dog walking, and I'm not going to lie, during winter, I don't go for as much walks, especially living here in the Midwest. So, it's easier, I guess, to keep track of the dog crap that's in your backyard, but sometimes I get lazy and I don't pick that up either. But, I think there are exceptions. I think in the winter, or if there's like bad weather and, your dog's really pushing for a walk and you got to just go out there and get through it, try your best to pick it up. But, sometimes it's not going to happen. I think that's normal too. So much more I can say on this, but I feel like I've hit all the points on that one. I think another good etiquette when walking your dog, especially if you're going to bike path, is to try to walk as furthest to the corner of the path as possible, especially if there's like limited grass in that direction. I also don't think bike paths are reserved for no dogs walking unless there's a sign that says that. So like just be careful with the where you're walking your dogs. In my neighborhood, you can walk dogs on the bike paths in certain areas. You just have to be very conscious and careful. And I like to walk kind of on the edge, especially if I'm walking near or just crossing a bike path to get to a sidewalk typically. But just be careful. I be seeing people taking over the little bike path in the middle, walking, strutting their stuff and being in the way and shit and stuff. It's going for runs. And I mean, it's fine, but just, be careful. Like sometimes people be riding these bikes and I swear to you, they kind of give you like the weirdest mean mug ever. And it's like, look, I'm only on here for like 30 seconds. I'm just crossing here because this leads from this way to the other sidewalk where I need to go and finish my walk. So I'm curious, do y'all like walk like temporarily, or if you do, on bike paths where you can, or do you just avoid all bike paths just to be like, safe or whatever? Because I think, of course, you should avoid them if to be safe. But ours is kind of built like as a walking path, which is so interesting. I've seen other areas in Madison where it's strictly no dogs walking on these paths or no bikes. So like, I guess it does depend, and that's something to consider. But I don't really think it should matter. Like, don't be mean mugging me if I'm walking my dog temporarily here for about 30 seconds. I'm not taking over the middle. I will say, if you are walking your dog in these areas and you are in the middle, you are in the way. And you know you are. So, like, save all the energy for all those people that are in the middle of the way. I'm not a middle of the way kind of girl. I like to get on there over by the little Goodman Center. No shade. Quickly take our little walk from crossing from one direction of the neighborhood to the other angle of the neighborhood to get to the sidewalk that's around the Goodman Center so I can cross to that sidewalk. I don't know why I'm explaining myself. Look it up. You'll figure it out. But anyway, I want to thank you all for listening to my rant on dog walking etiquette. I think there's so much more I didn't cover, so I'm curious to hear a lot of your stories. So I am going to leave a way at the end of the podcast for you to send entries in, because we are going to start a You Pick moment, or a You Pick podcast segment where you kind of pick the topic. I'm going to start it sometime soon, within the next month or so. So it will be a great way for me to get engaged with my audience and figure out what kind of topics you would like to hear about, or if there's any interesting topics that you want to talk about that I can relate to, or that you can relate to, or that you're just curious about my take on, or someone else's take on that I've heard of. I'm here to just spill the tea and talk my talk. So thanks for listening, and keep tuning in, because there's more to discuss. You are listening to Clock the Celeb in Reality with Dr. Long. This is your host, Dr. Long. Today, we're going to talk about the Real Housewives. We're going to hop right into it, and I have a lot to talk about, so I won't get into any celebrity gossip this week, but I will get into the Real Housewives of Potomac and the Real Housewives of Miami. 2 words, we have affair and we have arrested. Yes, you are listening to Clock the Tea. Did you hear that? Arrested in Westminster, Maryland, each slapped with a $50,000 bond. Wendy's facing 16 charges, including 7 felony counts for allegedly submitting false insurance claims, totaling nearly I think $500,000. And then Eddie's charges haven't even been fully disclosed yet. We'll get more of that tea, I guess, when you find out more information. So basically, it dates back to April of 2024. The couple claimed that their home was burglarized while they were while they were vacationing out in Jamaica. They came back. They said designer handbags were taken, anniversary bags, jewelry, all kinds of things. And basically, they said that they had their anniversary bands even taken while they were filing claims at jewelers and travel insurance agencies and home sites. And the total, I think, was about $450,000 in property losses and about $2,500 in building damage. So yeah, this is where things get a little bit messy. So investigators behind the claim found out that there was no signs of forced entry at all whatsoever. They had an ADT alarm system, which was active the entire time. No motion was detected, no broken windows. Apparently, the Ring camera showed packages being delivered, but no burglars. Everything's being caught like in real time. Anyway, it gets crazier. So in the supposed like entry point, a roof screen was damaged or something, but the window beneath was unlocked and untouched. No debris. There was no roof grit, and in fact, I think only one roof grit found inside was tracked in by the investigators themselves. So it wasn't even anything that was just, basically criminal. Oh my goodness. So the anniversary bands, I guess Eddie said that they were wearing them, and then later he claimed that Wendy's gold diamond band was stolen, and travelers paid XYZ amount of dollars. It's just so messy. And Eddie's a lawyer, and he runs this cannabis brand called Happy Eddie, which, I recently just started to support. And now there's apparently filed overlapping claims with multiple insurers without disclosing that detail. And there's just so much going on. They were taken into custody today. So I'm gagged. I don't know where this takes them on the show. I don't know how Wendy's going to respond to this, if she's going to decide to show up and have this conversation on camera with the girls. She's been very critical of Karen. This season, we have Kay calling her out all season because she said, the girl has switched up on her. Maybe she knew something was going on behind the scenes regarding this. So, there's also things going on in personal lives that we don't know, but this is a pretty big deal. Insurance fraud is something quite embarrassing when you claim to be this doctor person and this professional. And don't get me wrong, I don't know if this negates from their accomplishments on their own, but at the same time, that's something that I hold myself to a higher regard when it comes to being careful with finances. And I just think that anybody should do that, but especially because of my accomplishments, I don't want to then be someone who promotes, higher education and being responsible and thinking about others in the profession by spreading more education and more understanding on wellness. And then to be doing something like that behind the scenes is pretty crazy. It almost seems like the fame got to their head. So we know that this facade, this glam facade that's been happening, their narrative right now and storyline on the show is that Happy Eddie has taken off. And you see Eddie at the beginning talking to the kids saying, hey, this is what happens when you shoot for your dreams. And, it's just giving what's going on right now. If you're being inauthentic and you're doing something, you're going to get caught, especially if there's cameras all around you. You're posting on Instagram with items that you claimed were stolen. Oh, what I think happened, and I don't want to get controversial, but now that Miss Huger is out, she's like, baby. What you're not going to do is come in here and try to discredit me when you're a shady bitch. Karma's going to come back and get you. And you know what? Karen did her time, and karma came back and got you, Wendy. I'm sorry. Because you were very vocal last year around this time about Karen and what she was doing. But behind the scenes, you were in April and May of last year being scandalous. Now, this is all alleged, I guess. But, the reports were released. So I don't know if it's allegedly anymore in regards to the claims and what's happening with the charges. But, this is a pretty big deal. So I don't know, maybe take a break and take care of your family. But at the same time, if you claim to be someone who stands on integrity, maybe this is something you need to answer to. I mean, they can probably get out of this. Now, I do think that Wendy and Eddie have connections based on their accomplishments and in their network within the DMV area, and also personally and friends and connections, I'm sure. Wendy was invited to the White House for her podcast or her talk show, and Eddie has taken off entrepreneur-wise. He's bought out in 5 states, but there's a little bit going on behind the scenes there. So it'll be interesting to see how they navigate their ways out of this. And this season is heating up. Wow. Man, well, we'll see what happens and what comes from this. I want to move on into another topic. Now we have the Real Housewives of Miami. We are almost through the reunion here, and we had the huge revelation that came from Julia about sleeping with Adriana back in the Hamptons. I believe it was in 2021 or 2022, something along the lines of that. And she said Martina knew about it, and Adriana is absolutely denying it. She's like, we never did anything. I don't, for lack of a better word, go that way or do sexual moves in that matter. And we have Julia, who is really exclaiming that it happened and that Adriana is basically not willing to own up to it, and that she's been threatened by it and made to feel bad about it and kind of been held, to a different standard, like an underlink under Adriana, because Adriana knew about this information. But what the gag was is Adriana decided to spill all this tea about her having multiple affairs outside of just Adriana, and that basically Julia is known as a cheater. She apparently had this thing with this Haitian mortician, and then she also had another with someone else. It just got messy. And then I was just completely thrown off when she copped to it and said, yeah, Martina knows about that too. So not only are you deciding to throw this information out there about Adriana, your best friend, but you have also had multiple affairs on your wife, and you claimed that you had multiple conversations with her and that she understands and that she's okay with that, and that's part of the reason why she's not there, because she knew that you were going to talk. It's just getting messy. You just adopted these two sons. That should be your storyline. I don't understand what's going on between you and Adriana. I think you turned your back on her. I think you got onto this show and you decided to be all buddy-buddy with Alexia and Marisol, which is fine, because I think they're, they have their own duo, but it feels good to be accepted. What I don't appreciate is the fact that you have made mistakes and you're willing to be like, well, this happened between us, so this is the main... No, you're a mother. Like, have some decency. And it'll be interesting to see how the story carries along. And I know Adriana isn't completely innocent here. I mean, you were kind of messing around with someone while they were married. That's not good. But at the same time, Adriana is single. And Julia, you are not. And you said that you and Martina do not have an open relationship. So it gives that you are not a very trustworthy person. And I don't know how this is going to work for you, because everything that Gertie has said about you is making a lot of sense. And you have to be willing to be a good person and be someone that people want to be around, and not, come across as fake and want to throw people under the bus. That's not how you win fans over. That's not how you win over the edit, if you want to blame it on that. Like, you have to be willing to bring your authentic life, but in a way that's not damaging to those around you and yourself. So maybe this should be her last season. I'm okay with bringing back Dr. Nicole and another new housewife and throwing that in the mix, because maybe Julia isn't over her head, but the gag is she has a storyline now, so maybe there's something she can use from this. Anyway, that is my full recap for now. I still have not watching The Real Housewives of Orange County, so I will be getting to that with my husband, and there will be another drop of that later on. So thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. You can listen more to my podcast as we continue to give more story. Thank you.